Despite being blessed with oil, agriculture remains the base of Nigeria's economy.
Well, Nigeria's agri sector has arguably undergone the most drastic transformation in 2019 and previous years. Nigeria embarked on a rice revolution and empowered farmers through the Anchor Borrower Scheme and other schemes.
Now, propelled by the ban on the importation of rice through the land borders and the closure of land borders since August, Nigeria's local rice production received a major boost and has seen the country nearing self-sufficiency in rice. Herders-farmer clashes reduced in 2019 and farmers returned to farming, translating into more produce than in 2018. Now joining us is African farmer Mogaji, the CEO, Farm Credit. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And compliment of the season. Who was ever get that?
Same here.
Okay, I know that was it Monday or Tuesday? I visited the parks and what I saw was amazing. And I've gone to rice sellers and I've seen that we have local rice in production. Everybody's buying local rice now. How is it for you? You're a farmer. I'm sure you've seen this kind of this revolution so far. When it started, it was quite daunting for Nigerians because we couldn't just do it without foreign rice. Yeah. But at this point, we have a lot of foreign and local rice in the market. How is it for you?
Yeah, it's a welcome development. And the rice farmers are happy, the poultry farmers are happy. Many of the people producing locally, many of them are quite happy with the trend of events. But that may be short-lived.
Okay, why do you think so?
Yes, because many of them also are not planning 5 years. They're just taking advantage of the current opportunity. And so after this festive season, that's when the real thing shows up. And so if you're not planning for 2-3 years ahead now, you may have some challenges next year. But it's a welcome development. The sector will keep developing based on demands. But it's now the people who have the right information would be able to take advantage of that.
In the 21st century, one would have expected that Nigeria is, embracing technology. You still see a lot of persons adopt the subsistence farming method. How well can we harness that potential, embracing technology and seeing how it can help us? Considering we've seen a lot of policies being made by the state, federal and state governments, interventions here and there, Anchor's Borrower program, different programs for farmers. But the Nigerian farmer is still yet to embrace all of this and turn it into wealth.
Now, so being in the field for over 23 years now, it's not embracing technology, it's adapting technology. Okay. We've been embracing technologies that don't really work here. Brilliant, big ideas, beautiful ideas in Europe, in US, but that may not be implementable here. But adapting it to the environment here is why we're not getting the results. So you bring a technology from Israel, it's precision farming, or from the US. The scale at which it was designed and developed for, we don't have it here. So adapting technology is why we're not getting results.
So isn't that is a problem quite all right, but isn't that an opportunity for Nigeria to develop its own?
There's so much opportunity, and I'm happy about the Nigerian youths. They are seriously and hungrily embracing these gaps. But beyond just zeal, zeal without knowledge will end up frustration. So we just need some support from the private sector, from the government, to encourage a lot of the youths that this new trend of the opportunity, and they see money. They've seen the money, they are going there. So we need policies and systems to be able to aid that, and will be food secured in a short while.
In year 2019, we experienced flooding like never before in Nigeria. And of course, a lot of those farms were flooded. Which is what you said after the first question, that we might start to see the impact, in year 2020, because we're not prepared for the year 2020. But how can we, what shock absorber, if I would use that word, can we use to ensure that the Nigerian populace do not go hungry, but food secured?
Now, the rice we're celebrating today, that's an opportunity for the farmers and the sellers, local rice. Next year, the flood has taken away a chunk of those rice fields. So we may not be sustainable next year. What I would expect from government, because it's only government that can step into these things, you have massive river basins that they use to grow tomatoes. When they grow the tomatoes, the price will drop like from 5,000 naira per basket to like 300 naira around February. Government should try to discourage them from growing tomatoes and growing rice to grow the products that the demand has increased,
okay,
and that the market will be there. So the farmers are still producing their onions and tomatoes, what they've been used to doing, but I'm not seeing government stepping into that for the sustainability. But that needs to happen.
All right. Africa Farmer Mogaji, thank you so much for talking to us at this time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, joining us now is African Farmer Mogaji, CEO, Farm Credit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
And compliments of this season.
Same here.
You don't forget to say that.
You must never forget to say that. All right, so rice farmers are happy. Livestock farmers are happy, of course, owing to the season that we're in, because there's a lot of demand for rice and livestock. The land border closure issue. At first, a lot of persons were a bit skeptical when the government came up with that directive. But in the long run, how do you see this playing out? The land border closure issue, of course, we do not see an end in sight. The rice farmers are happy for now.
Yeah.
How do you see this playing out, the border closure and the demand for the production of rice?
Well, you know, there are two sides to every coin. So the jubilation is still temporary. Why? Because next year you have many people want to take advantage of the border closure and the high demand for rice. However, we don't have enough seeds to take advantage of that production.
Why?
Yeah, because we've not planned for it. So it's not cheap to produce seeds. So when you produce the rice we eat, it can regrow. So when you replant it, that is grain. Seed production is more expensive than grain production. So you will find many people go and buy grains, what should be processed for us to eat, to go and plant it. When they plant it, they will not get the results. So we are still not deliberate in terms of implementation. Most of these things are on paper. They have the policies and the ministry. We need to implement this. This is what the government needs to sit the private sector down to show the private sector the money and the policies in which they are implementing to back it up. Until we do that, this is still temporal.
So it means in the long run, the prices that we think or we thought will go down.
We're celebrating.
We're celebrating now.
The prices for a couple of commodities will not go down. Why will it not go down? It's because the corn, the dry corn that is used for making animal feed, making ogi, akamu, and co, is always produced it's produced a year before. So the grain we are eating this year, the corn, the dry corn this year, was produced in 2018.
Okay.
So in 2019, there was flood. There was heavy rainfall at harvesting. That reduced the yield. They closed the borders, so they augment with importation, so a lot of those will not come in like before again, so the prices will go high. So the farmers may be happy now. The livestock farmers who depend on soya and maize, livestock feed producers, the giants who depend on maize and soya, cannot import these things again. So if they cannot import in the volume that they need and is not locally available, so what happens to them? They would increase their prices. And don't forget, it was a shock to everybody when the border was closed. So we need government to come out now to show policies and frameworks that they have that the private sector can leverage on. And also we need, because a lot of this is dependent on government. I mostly will tell you it's dependent on private sector. But because of that sudden closure, it's dependent on government showing the roadmap for the private sector. So we need, and I must be fair on the government, the intervention, there's been more intervention funds made available. There's been more proactive CBN, but we need these monies to be able to be accessed by the key players, which we have bottlenecks there.
But looking at the land border closure issue, some persons will say the story is also sad for us because we cannot export our livestock, we cannot export all that we produce here. Are you worried that some persons will say we do not even have anything to export because we're still trying to feed our own population? What do we have to export?
Well, the thing is that when you check the percentage of exports, is this significant? The market locally is huge. So when China developed, China wasn't looking at the world. They were looking at feeding themselves. It was when they fed themselves, the excess began to go out. So after some time, they now had a long-term production for the world. So for now, we can feed ourselves. So if we produce and feed, it's good. However, it's short-sighted also when we are not looking at West Africa. Nigeria cannot do any good budgeting without budgeting West Africa because like Niger has a dry environment. They've been depending on us for a lot of grains over the years. So any planning we do must involve their needs. So if we shut our borders, it's good for some time, but we must go and negotiate on the table to get things done so that we can meet their needs and they can also create markets for us.
All right, African farmer Mogaji, thank you so much for talking to us on this.
Thank you for having me.